right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting officially to order. We would ask that folks, if you are willing and able to stand for the invocation, which will be given by Chaplain Jesse Hernandez, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So Reverend Hernandez, you may make your way to the front.
Father, we come before you in the name of Jesus, and we pray, oh God, that you will grant us the wisdom that we all need, Father, in this life, especially for the leaders, oh God, that you have placed and that are seeking to help the city and the state, Father. We pray that you will grant us your mighty favor, Father, from your Son, Jesus Christ, Father. So be in this meeting, Father, and grant us the wisdom that we need in the fear and admonition of you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda items 1 through 9.
Consent agenda items 1 through 9. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? If there is no discussion, then I'll make a motion that we pass the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yeas, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Report of Board of Bids and Contracts dated August 23rd, 2021.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Hannah Lang, Department of Finance, here for the August 23rd Board of Bid recommendations. First engineering bid we have is sanitary sewer extension to serve Boulevard East Edition. This bid was pulled from last week, so it is going for award with Apex Excavation for $43,921. Plainview water main replacement, all bids rejected. Golf course mowing equipment, professional turf products for groups 1, 2, and 3 for a total of $227,812.65. This is our purchasing procurement website, as well as our current open request for proposals. That is the Board of Bids recommendations. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions of staff? See none. Any input from the public? See none. Discussion back to the bench. Any discussion on the item? See no discussion. With that, I will make the motion to take staff's recommended action to receive and file a report, approve the contracts, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yeas, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
2022 Annual Operating Budget and 2022-2031 Capital Improvement Program.
All right. Sir, welcome.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the City Council. Mark Manning with the Department of Finance. Today, I am here to present to you the 2022 operating budget and the 22 to 31 capital improvement program. It's been a long journey to get to where we are today, but today is the day that you have set based on state statute for the adoption of the budget and the CIP. We started this process back in January and February. We reviewed a lot of data, analyzed financial trends. The manager visited with department directors, developed budget proposals. We started having retreats with the City Council in April. We had 3 retreats. We engaged the public in May and June, had numerous meetings, posted a lot of stuff to the website, hosted a social media town hall, and answered numerous budget questions. And again, today is the 4th public hearing that you have had on the budget, one of which was an evening meeting to facilitate participation, and today is the day in which you have set to adopt the budget. So everything that we do at City of Wichita is aligned to our city mission. That mission is that we want to be a well-run city, keep people safe, grow the economy, maintain and build dependable infrastructure, and provide conditions for living well. This budget has a steady mill levy. The mill levy rate is estimated at 32.749. That is exactly equal to the mill levy rate in 2021. In fact, this will mark the 28th year in which the mill levy in the proposed budget has been the same as the prior year. I'd point out that an average homeowner in Wichita pays a little bit less than $2 a day in property taxes, which I guess depending on where you buy your morning coffee is about the price of a cup of coffee every day. This budget is compliant with state statute. We've mentioned previously how state statute dictates our budget process. Timelines and publication requirements have been met based on state statute. Reserves are appropriated in some cases, again, as required by state statute. The revenue neutral rate resolutions have been prepared for approval. And again, that's based on our new tax lid law, and that's to ensure that we are compliant with that law. And finally, after the budget is adopted, staff will certify the results to the county, which again is required by state statute. Budget's based on a variety of policy parameters. The expenditures, as I noted earlier, are consistent with priorities and with the city's mission. Our reserves are maintained. The CIP is aligned with the Community Investments Plan, and in fact, the Planning Commission made that finding last week. Utility budgets are aligned with utility pro formas, and finally, debt levels, particularly in the CIP, are within policy parameters. This budget uses a significant amount of American Rescue Program Act funding, or ARPA, $72.4 million. Again, that funding will help us fill vacant positions to restore government services, and it'll fund a variety of capital improvement projects, and also there's a significant portion allocated for community initiatives. So an overview of our budget is about $670 million. Again, on the left-hand pie chart, you can see where our sources of revenue are. Charges for services is generated primarily by the water utility, and that's a significant portion. Property taxes make up about 20% of the total city budget. On the expenditure side, you can see salaries is about 36% of our total expenditures. In the general fund, that amount is going to increase to about 75%. Debt service is a significant portion of our total city budget, and as we've discussed previously, the vast majority of that debt service, again, is for our water and sewer utility. This chart shows where we spend our general fund dollars, where our revenues come from. You can see property tax is a little over a third. Franchise fees is a significant source, and our portion of the countywide sales tax is about 13%. Now, where do we spend those dollars? You can see that about 64% of every dollar we spend goes to public safety. Now, this chart does include municipal court and public safety, so in other places you may see that number at 61%, and that would be just police and fire. But the takeaway is a significant portion of our general fund budget goes towards public safety. And in fact, that percentage has been increasing over the last several decades considerably. And you can see that about 86% of our entire budget goes to police, fire, court, park, and public works. So let's look at the CIP. This is where the revenue comes from for the CIP. Again, about a third of it is for water and sewer projects, and roughly a third is from property taxes and from our share of the local sales tax, and the other third is from a variety of other sources. So let's review what is in the budget and the CIP related specifically to our goal areas. Keeping Wichita safe is a very important priority for the city of Wichita, so I want to focus on the police department. This budget finishes phase 2 of the staffing plan and includes 7 additional officers. It also includes 2 community support specialists in the police department, funds a variety of capital improvements, including 4 new police stations. And I included a little chart there just to give you a historical perspective. Since 2016, if you go out to the 2023 proposed, police department has increased about $22 million over this time period. Let's look at the fire department. Again, very important to our priority of keeping people safe. This budget adds $1 million to the budget for a fire response optimization plan. It retains 12 positions for which the grant is about to expire. It funds 6 fire stations and includes a variety of funding for new fire trucks and other fire equipment. And again, you can see from the graphic there that since 2016, the fire department budget has increased $10 million over this time period. Growing our economy is important. This budget funds a small business portal. It maintains a stable and steady tax rate, and it funds infrastructure improvements to the West Street corridor and the North Junction. Maintaining dependable infrastructure. This budget includes in the CIP $163 million for additional road maintenance. And you can see based on the chart there that that amount will grow from about $11 million in 2022 to $20 million a year by 2031. It also includes about $37 million in the CIP to maintain our city facilities and includes about $30 million for active transportation projects. In the area of living well, based on city council feedback, we have restored some reductions that we had to make last year during the height of the pandemic. So we've restored funding for library materials, tree trimming, tree planting, and some right-of-way mowing in park. This budget merges cultural arts services with park and recreation to enhance service levels, we believe, but there is no adjustment to personnel with that recommendation. Funds a variety of capital improvements, including South Lakes improvements, Phase 1 of the LW Clapp Master Plan, and improvements at the McAdams facility. This budget is based on outsourcing management of the Century 2 facility. We believe that this will increase and improve the customer experience there. We believe that we can find an outsourced contractor that will utilize best practices and perhaps have some synergies locally that will help us improve our operating results. So the projected subsidy from the city for the convention center is projected to drop by about $1.6 million. Again, I noted last week that our golf courses are in fact improving financially, but there are improvements that we can make. As I noted last week, there's some opportunities to optimize our performance and to set aside money for capital improvement projects and reserves. So this budget envisions the process of outsourcing management of the golf courses. RFPs, I believe, have been back for a little while, and staff is in the process of reviewing those. This budget is based on an entry-level wage of $15 an hour for new full-time employees that the city will hire, and staff will coordinate the implementation of these efforts with our bargaining units. So looking forward a little bit on some of the next steps, we try to improve our processes each year, and we've gotten a variety of feedback. So we are going to try to enhance our efforts at data visualization, primarily using materials online and making it easier for you to drill down on certain pages of the budget for additional information. We are going to look at how we can streamline our budget materials. We've gotten some feedback there. And I think the mayor last week mentioned something in that regard. So we will look at how we can streamline our budget books in order to make them equally informative, but perhaps a little easier for a layperson to read. And finally, performance measures are important, so we'll coordinate with departments in an effort to try to improve some of our performance measures. We have some next steps on ARPA. Again, we will use that immediately to help us fill positions, but some of the ARPA money will be used a little bit later. That includes our community initiatives money and maybe some of our capital improvement money. Our first deadline is August 31st, in which we have to provide some reporting to the federal government, so we will comply with that. We'll continue seeking feedback on the community initiatives, and we'll continue working with our partners to coordinate spending. You may recall that working with community partners in the spending of ARPA is one of the guiding principles for ARPA dollars. I need to address an issue with the Wichita downtown SMID. As you know, as the governing body, you set the mill levy for the SMID, but we typically do this in consultation and at the request of the WDDC, or the Wichita Downtown Development Corporation. You may recall that in the proposed budget, it included a flat mill levy of about 6.56. Since the assessed valuation decreased in the SMID, this would actually decrease their revenue. However, to provide flexibility for policy direction, the legal documents were created in a way that would provide you the flexibility, if you chose, to keep the revenue flat for the SMID. That would require, again, a slight increase in the mill levy because the assessed valuation decreased. We, again, have been in consultation with the WDDC, and it is our understanding that they would favor option 2. I will point out that this is actually lower than what their mill levy has been in the past. I believe their mill levy was closer to 7 mills a couple years ago. But again, the WDDC has requested that revenue stay flat, which would mean a modest, very slight increase in their mill levy rate. We usually don't go through recommended action, but I thought I should today because approving the budget is relatively complicated in the actions that we will ask you to take. Again, we need you to approve the resolutions to exceed the revenue neutral rate for both the City of Wichita and the SMID, or the Self-Supporting Municipal Improvement District. Again, this is the first year of the R&R resolutions, and we're a little bit concerned about how to comply with state statute. So not only has the state of Kansas, but also our professional organizations, KLM and others, they have encouraged all municipalities to adopt a resolution to exceed the R&R. So those resolutions we have proposed for approval. We obviously need you to adopt the proposed budget and consider the requested amendment from the SMID. Staff would recommend that you approve their request based on our past history of acceding to the WDDC's request for the mill levy on the SMID. And we also need you to approve the second reading of the budget ordinances. The first reading for those was on July 20th. We do have one amended budget. Again, we mentioned this on July 20th. It's relatively common for us to amend one or two budgets. Again, this has to do with state statute, which sets maximum expenditure authority. We need to amend and increase the Union Station TIF. That's a very good thing. That means that TIF is producing an increment larger than what we anticipated. And based on the development agreement, we need the expenditure authority to utilize those funds. So we do have one budget that we need to be recertified. We would also ask you to authorize staff to take the necessary actions and steps to implement this budget. That's primarily filing the cert forms with the Sedgwick County as required by state statute. We also have action for you today to adopt the capital improvement program. And finally, the last one we don't talk about much, but as you know, we have a community-wide mill levy for Wichita State University, 1.5 mills that is levied by Sedgwick County, but based on our interlocal agreement with Sedgwick County, which I believe we agreed to in 1989, the City of Wichita has the authority and requirement to approve the use of the mill levy funds generated from within the corporate limits of the City of Wichita. So we would ask you to approve the use of those funds consistent with the request by the Wichita State University Board of Trustees. And that's the end of my comments, Mayor. Again, I'd acknowledge the help that staff provided this, particularly Elizabeth Goldry-Wachel. She was essential in this process, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions of staff? See none. Thank you. We'll open up to discussion from the public. Good morning and welcome, sir.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, council members. My name's Esau Freeman, and I'm the business representative for SEIU Local 513. And those are the employees that are the little hodgepodges in the rest of the budget after you get done giving all the money to police and fire. There's been a trend for several years that police and fire are the most important people that we have, and they get quite a bit of hero worship that they absolutely deserve. What my concern is that I don't think we've done a very good job of rewarding the people who kept your water on during this pandemic, the people who made sure that your sewers didn't back up, and the people that have worked on your streets that the jobs didn't go to subcontractors. I'm a little worried about, and I love you, Mark. I think you do good things for the city and you're really smart with numbers, but this whole idea of capital investments bothers me a little. I think we ought to be investing in the employees and the managers and the people that got us through this pandemic, and not worry so much about those investments that are just buildings that stand there, because it's the skin and bone that got us through this. It's those people that got up and went to work every day and risked their lives. And I sure hope that you've planned for rather generous compensation in this year's contract negotiations. Because, you know, when it comes down to it, if people leave the city of Wichita, they stand to make 9% more at their next employer. And you guys have had quite a few people that have stuck it out for a good long time. But I can tell you that your employees that work in the middle of the workforce that have been here for 4 years, that are just starting to make $15 an hour now, are a little concerned that the next person walking in the door is going to be making $15 an hour. Because, you see, when you work for a long time for someplace, a lot of times people value the amount of money they make against the person that came in after them. And if you don't recognize that, you're going to have some pretty tremendous employment problems coming up. So, whether it be housing out the workers at Century 2 to somebody else or finding them a job in another department, we need to make sure that those employees are kept at their wages that they're at. We need to make sure that they're taken care of, because I know we're going to have friends from the community come up and say, you should have given us a bigger tax break this year. But the people that keep your lawns mowed in the parks and the baseball fields and the places that we all go to and enjoy are people who often are going home and still struggling to pay their bills. And so I would appreciate it if you guys, before you vote on this budget, make sure you put a big chunk of change in there for the people who've done the work to get us through this. And thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm a little confused. Hopefully you'll stand for a question.
Absolutely.
The increase of $15 an hour is the base pay for everyone. What percentage of your union will likely benefit from that? Do you know off the top of your head?
A very small percentage, Mayor. Most of them are new employees that we can't even sign up for the next 60 days. And when Bob went ahead and sent me a copy of the people who were getting that raise, I think there was somewhere around 70 or 80 people, and half of them were a whole 3 cents away from $15 an hour. So I am glad that the city's taken that step, but you have to remember that the other people that have been here for a long time, they expect to be taken care of. And they expect for you to recognize their accomplishments and their service to you.
So you said that there would be more people being hired that would be SEIU. Is that what you just said as well, that you guys are hiring
Well,
more
that's
folks?
another point of contention since you ask. At one point in time, we were going to hire all those people back. Unfortunately, we're only going to hire some of those people back. We're not going to get them all back. And so that's a problem for us too. Those were all represented employees who had good living wage jobs through the city. And when the city takes actions like has a management company come in and take some of their employees off their hands, that does not help Wichita have more living wage jobs, more benefited jobs. It typically reduces the employee's salary and makes life harder for them.
But hiring those folks, hiring anybody back will start at $15 an hour. Does that benefit your organization?
Eventually it will benefit some, but actually if the employees have to, in the middle, suffer the wage gap there, the wage compression, it may not benefit us at all, Mayor. It may make the unions look weak and that we can't get things for employees that they need. So I understand that's a big feather in your cap, and we appreciate the city's willingness to do that and the willingness to work through that, but that doesn't solve all the problems. Frankly, we're short on people in animal control, the water department, your security officers. You just hired some security officers on, and they probably won't be trained for another 6 months. And I could go on for a while, but I think you'd probably like me to stop.
No, I'm just still a little confused. My understanding is you told the media you were looking to increase the base wage for the last 5 years. We're going to do that. Your testimony says you would benefit at least 70 to 80 people within your organization. Are you in favor of the $15
When you
hour?
say within our organization, Brandon, and I would, Mr. Mayor, say that, of course, we are in favor of a $15 minimum wage. However, all the other employees must be brought up at the same time, or you've done nothing. You've only brought up the base, and you've insulted the people in the middle. And if you don't agree with it, hop off your bench and walk around and talk to some of your employees.
So those 70 to 80 people who you represent today don't believe that raising the base pay to a living wage is a big step forward for them?
I will tell you that if you send a poll out to the 800 or 900 people that we represent, you will find that the general consensus is that if you're going to move the people at the bottom to $15 an hour, the whole pay scale needs to move the same direction, the same amount for every employee, even those employees who've been here for 30 years, because a lot of those folks have been topped out for a long time. And they still got up and showed up and did what they were supposed to do, and they feel there's no appreciation when the bottom comes up and the water raises on them, and it doesn't benefit them. So I appreciate you guys doing that. I'm not trying to say that $15 an hour minimum wage is a bad thing, but it doesn't take care of your long, dedicated workers. And to insinuate that it does is just not true.
Okay. Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to empathize with you a little bit because I've been in this situation. I started at Cessna for $7.46 an hour. I had a bargaining unit job. It took me 3.5 years to make $10 an hour, and then they raised the beginning wage to $10 an hour. So I remember the frustration I went through, so just telling you I do empathize, and I've been there with you, so I know what you're talking about.
I appreciate that. And I noticed, you still working at Cessna? There you go, boss. Thanks. Any other questions for me? All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. Carl Peter John for the record. I'm a constituent of Councilman Fry's. Looking at the presentation that Mr. Manning gave, appreciated it. I was interested as a technical question, what the difference was between if we had the city stay under the self-supporting, the revenue neutral rate and the proposed budget, how much money we're talking about between the difference there. It's a question I would appreciate getting answered at appropriate time, but I wanted to make 3 quick points to you this morning on the budget side of things, because when I became a county commissioner, one of the things the staff learned from me was I kept using the word fungible. And a lot of people didn't know what that meant, but I'd say simply, if I've got a $20 bill in this pocket and I put it over here, I can put it in this pocket, that money is fungible. And you all have the windfall of over $70 million that's landed in your lap. And none of you were on the council 12 years ago when the proposal to redo the roof that needed to be done at Century 2 was on the CIP, and then it disappeared and has not gone forward. Well, council members, I've had to replace the roof on my house, had the house painted. It's one of the things you've got to do, take care of your infrastructure. In my case, my home infrastructure. I think with the resources the city has, taking care of the roof would be an extremely appropriate thing to do at Century 2. There may be more critical building needs. I'm not an expert on that, but I think that is a neglected area of the city infrastructure, because what isn't on the agenda gets often overlooked. And that brings me to a second point. I've heard some discussion. You all talked about the possibility. When I was a county commissioner, we put the county checkbook online. And you all, as a governmental body, you have the challenge. There's some things you've got to keep confidential and some things you'd like to make available to the public. Well, we managed at the county, you could get detailed financial information. The county checkbook was there. People could access that public record information. I think that's a policy the city ought to look at in terms of following forward with that. And my final point is, a couple weeks ago, I spoke with you about City Council Policy 38. I've also spoken with our new election commissioner, trying to get more details on the time frame, because the November ballot has to be finalized. Mr. Mayor, council members, your lives could be a lot easier, and I think the community would be a lot better if we let the issue of saving Century 2 go to the voters, let the voters decide, and we can proceed. But the time to do that and get it on the November ballot is about to run out. I was told that the official ballot has to be approved September 1st. I asked about an advisory vote, and I'm still trying to get detailed response. I believe that's also September 1st, but they were doing some checking, and I don't have a definitive answer that I can share with you today. If any of you do, I'm all ears. But this is an opportunity that if only 4 of you, only 4 of the 7, say, look, we want to put this issue to rest because we want the voters to decide, the 17,000 people who have petitioned you. You can do it. The public deserves it. The city, in my opinion, with our unique and iconic historic building with Century 2 in the library, deserves it. The time to do it is now. Please don't let this opportunity be lost, because in a few days, I think maybe only one more meeting, August 31st, you'll lose the opportunity to put on the November ballot. There'd be no cost to do so to the city, and it's a small measure of economy. Mr. Mayor and council members, I'd be happy to stand for any questions, but I appreciate your attention and time. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. Celeste Reset, founder of Save Century 2 and a Wichita native. I spoke last week on the proposed budget. I'm going to respond to comments that were made after I had sat down. The budget was released July 20th, but I waited until July 29th to send an email asking when the CAFR would be released. The CAFR appeared early August on the city's website. If the CAFR has a deadline of June 30th to get to the state, please try to get a quicker turnaround with City Council so the CAFR is released closer to the budget. Thank you, Finance Director Manning, for answering my budget questions, and thank you to my City Council member who oversaw the responses. I appreciate it. My specific comments on the budget are renovate Century 2. It's time to take care of the building. We need an internal auditor, not a staff member. Cancel the ice rink contract and request an opinion from Allen Gibson Hulick on how you're booking the Star Bond debt for the new ball stadium. I was chastised last week for mentioning a developer's name because the person wasn't present. Rules of decorum are rules of courtesy. What is discourteous about using a person's name? Developer names are part of the city's public record. Taxpayers want transparency and accountability, not secrecy. If a developer comes to the city asking for taxpayer funds, their name should not be forbidden from being spoken like Lord Voldemort in Harry Potter. I've seen discourteous behavior exhibited by this city council among yourselves, and it wasn't from names being spoken, it was behaviors. The 2002 proposed budget is 664 pages long. The CAFR is 299 pages. Nowhere in these documents is the Water Walk Fairfield Inn mentioned, not one word. I was told last week that this information was available from the Series 811 official statement. That is not a workable solution. Taxpayers have to file a CORA or search through non-searchable city's website to try to find the official statement for these bonds. When I specifically searched for official statement Series 811 bonds, I got over 60 results on 7 pages, documents that were not related to these bonds. Why should taxpayers have to go through this difficult process to find mention of this project and its debt? I'm asking for 3 simple words: Waterwalk Fairfield Inn in the budget and CAFR. Why is this so impossible? Now let's talk about Jim Corrick. Jim Corrick appears in several city council minutes asking for money to build his Waterwalk Hotel. These minutes state, and I quote, 4G LLC is wholly owned by Jim Corrick, who has developed and owns 3 other Marriott hotels in Wichita. Jim Corrick stated he is the developer of the proposed project. Jim Corrick also shows up in the city's press releases. April 18th, 2019, Jim Corrick, chair of Visit Wichita, was appointed to the Riverfront Master Legacy Committee to determine recommendations for the East Riverbank. He said, and I quote, "We expect to move quickly and strategically with a months-long, not years-long, master plan process." So Jim Corrick is the chair of Visit Wichita. They also tap funds from the hotel guest tax that could have been spent on Century 2. And he was also appointed to the Riverfront Master Legacy Committee. He sits on a lot of important boards and committees. His name shows up on another public website, the Sedgwick County Election Office. He made campaign contributions to a city council member who is running for re-election this fall. Rodney Stephen II was awarded the contract for the Wichita Ice Rink Center. The December 20th, 2011 City Council meeting minutes state, Genesis Health Club, Inc. and Rodney Stephen II were given a $750,000 loan, and Stephen was personally to guarantee this loan. His name also shows up on the Sedgwick County Election Office. He made a campaign contribution to a city council member who is also running for re-election this fall. It's part of the public record. Making this information public results in transparency and accountability, not secrecy. Do not bury developer deals and developer names in documents that are difficult to find. State them in the CAFR and budget. We want to know who you're getting political contributions from, what committees you put them on, and how much taxpayer money you gave them. With any remaining time, I will stand for questions. Thank you.
All right, next person, please. Mr. Todd, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the Wichita City Council. My name is John Todd. I live at 1559 Payne here in Wichita, Sudbury County, Kansas. The SMID, Self-Supporting Municipal Investment District, is a tax that's on downtown businesses. I believe it's time now to start reducing the need for that. So my suggestion would be to reduce the mill levy charged on those businesses. So that's my recommendation. Also, strongly support the Carl Peter John's proposal to have an advisory vote on Century 2. Frankly, I believe that on your part, by doing an advisory vote, offering that out on the November 2nd general election ballot would go a long ways towards to creating community uplift and creating positive public relations between you and your constituents. Thank you so much.
Mr. Manager, in the foreseeable future, is the risk of Century 2, the physical building, actually at risk for demolition or removal that we know of?
No, Mayor. Actually, we'll be bringing a contract to you in September to look at managing the facility.
Okay, and the current policy that's been cited, if that was C2 or the old library was to be removed or replaced or demoed, it would have to then go for a vote of the public, according to current policy. Is that correct?
That's my understanding of the vote.
Okay. Any further discussion from the public? See none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on the budget? I just wanted, Councilmember Frye.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm pleased to see improvements for the McAdams Rec Center. Back in 2008, the Board of Park Commissioners recommended a long-term plan for complete center-by-center renovation of the 8 facilities that we have. That plan was readopted in 2016. So I'm looking forward to hopefully developing a master plan for all of our rec centers, much like we did with the Aquatics Master Plan. Having a balanced and equitable system is important for neighborhoods throughout Wichita. New projects like the McAdams Rec Center, South Lakes Pickleball Complex, Platt Park, they're all exciting and necessary. But at the same time, I hope we could finish projects that we have started but have stopped. And I point to Central and Bristol Park in District 2, Plainview Park in District 3, Crystal Prairie Lake in District 6. Hopefully, we could eventually see reinstatement of funding for Crystal Prairie Lake in a future CIP plan. A safer community is always a top priority. And so with this CIP, we're going to modernize and expand 4 police stations and 6 fire stations. We're going to hire additional officers, dedicate $1 million for the fire optimization study and the recommendations that may come out of that. I'm also thankful that dollars are finally being committed to supply body cameras for our reserve police officers. To Mr. Peter John's point, we constantly hear from our neighbors that we need to take better care of our infrastructure. Nearly 67% of the CIP dollars are committed to maintaining, replacing, or enhancing what we currently have. That includes the street maintenance, water utility, branch libraries, the next phase of the Aquatics Master Plan, stormwater drainage, and more. So, in a lot of respects, this budget and CIP has the opportunity to be transformational. During the pandemic, we learned to be leaner, more efficient, and productive in ways that we never imagined. So I'm hopeful that with our continued best practices, contract management, innovation, and ARPA funding, we're in a position to build for our future. So I thank you to the staff for all the work that you did on this, all the department heads, all of the city staff that had to suffer through the COVID pandemic and had to work a lot harder and differently. But I think this budget helps us get to a place where we can really build better. So thank you.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I've said consistently since I've been in this office that safe and healthy communities do not happen by accident. And so I also would like to echo Councilmember Fry in thanking staff led by City Manager Bob Layton, and then also Mark Manning and his team, I think have just done an outstanding job during a very challenging time. I also want to thank the community. We have community members who care and who come every week and share their thoughts, and it's appreciated. As I've said, this is your city hall, and we want to hear what you think. Also, I know this went to our district advisory boards. We had community input. So just a thank you to the community for letting us know what your priorities are. I've said consistently also that where you put your treasure is a reflection of your values. And so this is the third opportunity I've had to vote on a City of Wichita budget. And every year I say it's the most important vote that I make. So again, just a thank you to everyone who is involved in this process and for the staff and the community especially. Thank you.
Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor. And, you know, just with the ARPA funding and a lot of the money coming in here, this has been, I think it's been more opportunities for the budget than we've had in the past. You know, a lot of times we've had to make so many cuts here. On the rec centers, are we working on any kind of feasibility study or looking at where the needs are? Because I know we've got like south of Kellogg, the Osage Rec Center. We weren't even doing a lot of programming, and I think a lot of it was because of the dated facility and, just trying to identify the needs are. I am very happy that we're going to have the pickleball facility down there, and I don't know if there's an opportunity to look down there, some type of rec center, but I'd just be curious how we look at the overall picture and make sure we're serving the needs of everybody with the rec centers.
Councilmember Bluebell, Councilmember Fry asked for the development of a master plan for rec centers before the next CIP, so I'm going to assume that that's going to be, if not in the motion, that's the intent of the council. So we will be bringing back some kind of master plan to talk about rec facilities, rec centers specifically for the future.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Clayco.
Thank you, and I just want to echo what Councilmember Fry and Tuttle have said, and thank staff for the work that they have done on this and for the work that they did in terms of answering the public's questions. That was really important, and I want to thank the public for being here for our 4 hearings and giving us input. The things that I've heard from people in the community are that public safety are important and that roads and street maintenance and bike and ped amenities are important. So I'm happy to see that we are funding those things in this budget. And then also the opportunity with ARPA that we wouldn't have. We'd be in a much worse shape than we are if without ARPA, to be able to restore services and positions, and then the community initiatives that we're going to work on. So thank you, staff, for working on that, and thanks again to the community for weighing in on these items.
Further comments? Yeah, I'll just close by saying thanks to staff as well. This time last year, we were in a very tough situation where we had to cut $14 million out of the budget with anticipation that the federal government would not be able to pass any type of relief for us because that was a responsible thing to do. It was tough, very hard, and thanks to not just the first, I think, round of funds from the COVID relief, but also from the more recent Recovery Act funds, we're able to not just bring our services back up to where people expect them to be, but also try to expand on that by making investments in the community in the form of investing into small business development, job training, and also affordable housing. This budget is has a lot of really good stuff in it. One of the things I do want to highlight that I'm very proud of for this council and for the staff to make happen is the $15 an hour living wage entry fee or entry salary or hourly wage for folks who work throughout our city. I think it's a sharp contrast to my experience in state government where we were losing people who worked for the Supreme Court, people who worked for the legislature. We were losing these folks to the service sector, to fast food restaurants, to people who were paying more than we were. And we see this throughout our state, folks who work very important jobs and don't get the living wage that they deserve. I'm glad that Wichita is a trailblazer in ensuring that anyone who works for the city will be paid enough money in which they can live on that money. Very proud of that, and I look forward to more improvements as we continue to march forward next year with other budgets, more improvements to quality of life, and to investing in our employees. So with that, I will make a motion to accept staff's. Actually, I'll make a motion to pass the budget. Recommended action is to close the public hearing and approve the resolutions to exceed the revenue neutral rate of the city of Wichita and the self-supporting municipal improvement district. Adopt the 2022 proposed budget with the recommended adjustment to the self-supporting municipal improvement district and the second reading of the necessary budget ordinance, including those for the tax increment financing districts and the revised ordinance for the SSMID. 3, approve amending the 2021 budget for the Union Station TIF. 4, authorize staff to take the necessary steps to implement the budget, including budget adjustments, expenditure control levels, budget administration procedures, and to make any technical adjustments necessary to complete and submit the state certification forms. 5, adopt the 2022-2031 proposed capital improvement program. And 6, approve the use of local funds derived from the property within the corporate limits for the Wichita State University Board of Trustees, interlocal agreement between the city and county.
Second.
That's my motion. Seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Speak to the motion, Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I would request that item 6 be taken as a separate motion.
I didn't hear that. Could you repeat that?
I would request that item 6 be taken as a separate motion. Thank you.
Madam Parliamentarian, how do I proceed? The motion has been made and seconded. There's been a request to change the motion. Is that itself a substitute motion, or how do we proceed?
Mayor, the motion has been made and seconded for all items. I would treat this as a motion to amend or a substitute motion. However, the mover would like to make it. I'd suggest it be made as a substitute motion to take items 1 through 5, if that's okay with Finance Department, and then take up item 6 separately.
I would like to make a substitute motion that we address this through items 1 through 5, and 6 be taken as a separate motion. Thank you.
Second.
Motion has been made for items 1 through 5 to be voted on first, and there was a second by who? Councilmember Fry. It's a substitute motion. All in favor of the motion, please respond by pushing your green button. The result of 7 yeas, the items 1 through 5 have passed. Therefore, back on item 6, I make a motion to approve the use of local funds derived from the property within the corporate limits for Wichita State University Board of Trustees and a local government agreement between the city and county. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Councilmember Tuttle, speak to the motion.
Thank you. Due to a possible conflict of interest, I will be abstaining from this vote. Thank you.
The record show that Councilman Motel will be abstaining from this vote. Motion has been made and seconded. If there's no more discussion on the motion, having received 6 yeas to 1 abstain, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Renaming of McAdams Recreation Center.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Reggie Davidson with Parks and Rec Department, here to talk with you regarding the renaming of the McAdams Recreation Center. So a little background on the project. McAdams Park is a large community park with many amenities named for Emerson McAdams. It's over 100 years old and was formerly McKinney Park. Several attractions honor community members: Robert Bob Thurman Baseball Field, Charles Goose Daugherty Jr. Tennis Facility, Antoine Carr Basketball Courts, as well as the Barry Sanders Football Field and the McAfee Swimming Pool. Qualification for renaming Carl G. Brewer as the city's first elected African-American mayor. Served as a council member on mayor between 2001 through 2015. Shaped many of Wichita key areas, the downtown development, the Advanced Learning Library, as well as the Wichita Eisenhower National Airport. In compliance with City Council Policy Number 13, Carl Brewer meets the following requirements: significant contribution to the city, public service as a council member and mayor, our first African-American mayor and elected mayor, and mentor to many local community. There are no financial or legal considerations. This item was unanimously approved by the Board of Park Commissioners on August the 9th, and is recommended that the council approve the renaming of McAdams Recreation Center as the Carl G. Brewer Community Center. And finally, we have some site plans on the location showing the existing footprint as well as the proposed expansion to that, which will take place on the south and southwest of the existing center that's there in place. So with that, I'll stand for any questions that you guys may have.
Questions of staff? See none. Well done. We'll open up to input from the public.
Celeste Reset, Wichita native. I've grown up in Wichita, and my father was good friends with A. Price Woodard, the first African-American mayor of Wichita, and how easily we forget to honor those past honors bestowed on citizens. The gates around A. Price Woodard Park were rusted, and a keep out sign was placed on the fencing because people could cut themselves, and it was so badly rusted over the years that an actual keep out sign was on his park, named in his honor. And I think it's a shame that we have forgotten so quickly other important African Americans that served the city of Wichita, particularly during turbulent times in the 60s and early 70s. I have no problem with you naming this after Carl Brewer in his honor, but I want to see you take care of and preserve the facilities that have been named in honor of previous prominent Wichitan leaders, including mayors. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just for the public, we are in conversations about some significant potential renovations to A. Price Woodard in honor of our first African-American mayor here in the city of Wichita. Although the sign is there now and there are some improvements that need to be made, the overall goal will be to show that park the honor that it deserves, and those conversations have been ongoing, just for anyone who may have questions. Thanks, Mayor.
Further input from the public? Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. My name is Janice Thacker, and I live at 1537 North Yale Boulevard. And thank goodness I got up this morning because I see that we're trying to rename McAdams Park. As a child, I was able to play there,
enjoy the security and mentoring of people in the community. In fact, I had talked to Newhouse, and when they had tarp dances, he had to start the people dancing because the kids stood on the wall. The boys stood on one side and the girls stood on the other. So the social language of being a leader and being protected at that park. And I would say, I don't know why you don't leave it as McAdams. Brewer was mayor for the whole city. You got a whole bunch of other places. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to clarify, it is the rec center, not the entire park. And just to add to it, the rendering showed a little bit, I was going to wait, but this is a $7.9 million renovation to the rec center and expansion from what it is, and adding an additional 24 to 25,000 square feet, complete with industrial kitchen to honor Mayor Brewer, knowing that he loved to cook, and I have plenty of stories with that. And community center-wise, with programming and opportunities for young people to come there, learn about Mayor Brewer, and also have opportunity to work with Wichita State, Innovation Campus, USD 259. It's an inclusive center. More importantly, it was that led to the contribution from Fidelity Bank for this actual center, in which we are grateful for. So again, it's not the entire park. We recognize that Emerson McAdams was a man who wore many hats in this community: mentor, coach, teacher, officer, all of that. And as we look at McAdams Park, that's what it is. The name McAdams is the glue that holds everything together, from all the courses that you saw, the swimming pool. And in this facility, we'll actually tell that story of Emerson McAdams. Right now, you can't find that anywhere at the park. So we want to highlight who Emerson McAdams was and his contributions, but also honor the first elected African-American mayor, Carl Brewer, and some of the conversations that he and I had about that rec center and wanting to do some big things, and now we have that opportunity.
Next speaker, please. Welcome.
Well, hello, I'm Kathy Brewer, Mayor Brewer's widow. This was a real surprise for me, and I don't think, the last woman that spoke, I kind of had the same thoughts. I didn't want to take anything away from Mr. McAdams, and his contributions. So thank you, Brandon, for explaining that it's only going to be a certain segment of it. But what I would ask the council, can we please hold off on this until the family gets a chance to discuss it more? Because I don't want to cause any problems with the community, even if it's just a rec center. It's just what I'd appreciate if the family could have an opportunity to discuss this, because we didn't know about this. Thank you.
Councilmember Fry.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, to the question that Ms. Brewer spoke to, we have not seen the plan yet for this renovation or any of the financial details. So is this naming contingent upon that remodel, or is it going to be that if it doesn't happen?
I think that if you were to approve the renaming, that facility would be renamed as it is and as it would be improved.
Okay. So, and again, we would still have to have a presentation on the details about this remodel and all the financing, correct?
Correct.
That still has to happen. Yeah.
Councilmember Bluebock.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I think I'm the only one up here that served with former Mayor Brewer and considered him a good friend. And there's so many things he did for our city, for our community. His service in the military, he did so many things. And, we've had some other initiatives that I've pushed for some naming. I appreciate the family being here. And I want to do this right. I want to make sure whatever we name after former Mayor Brewer is completely on. I just take this task very importantly and want to make sure it's supported by the family and supported by the community, and make sure we make the right move here.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I did not have the honor of serving with Mayor Brewer, but I was an active community member and met with him several times. And again, just a really fine leader for our community. And I always felt that I was respectfully heard by him, which I appreciated, and has been a role model for me wanting to respectfully listen. So with that, with Ms. Brewer, and I know conversations will happen, but I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And I don't know exactly how this is going to go, but you know, if you know a time frame that would be appropriate for us to work off of, you know, for you to be able to have contact with your family, I think that would be important. But I know it took a lot of courage for you to come here today and to do that, so thank you for being here.
Further discussion on the item? Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. With Ms. Brewer's request, I would actually move that we defer this for 30 days. Is that enough time? All right. Defer this for 30 days and bring it up. That'd be September 21st meeting. Okay. Defer this to the September 21st council meeting.
I'll second that motion. So the motion is to defer item T under new council business, which is renaming of McAdams Recreation Center, will be deferred 30 days and come up on the agenda for the September 21st meeting. Is that correct, Vice Mayor?
Yep.
Motion is made and seconded. Clerk will open a roll. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. We thank you, Ms. Brewer, for being here today and to speaking with us. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember appointments and comments.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. It would be my pleasure to appoint Mr. Wes Gallion to the Land Bank Board of Trustees.
Further appointments. I am appointing Randy Frazier as the REAP representative to the Wichita Airport Advisory Board. Further appointments. Now I'll make a motion to accept these appointments.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yeas, the appointments do pass. We are back on comments. Are there any comments for the good of the body? Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. This evening, I'm going to have my first class in the Wichita Citizen Police Academy. I graduated from the Fire Academy, and so now I'm going to make the next endeavor for the police. So I'll provide updates to my district advisory board and through my newsletter, but just want to thank the Wichita Police Department for accepting me, but then also for having it, because I learned so much through the fire experience. I want to learn a lot more about police. Even though we're integrated in it every day, I still had a great perspective, and it was wonderful to interact with other community members who were learning alongside me. So look for more updates from me regarding the Citizen Police Academy. Thank you.
Councilmember Cirillo.
Thank you, Mayor. No announcement from me, but just a reminder, I think you might check with the clerk, but I think you forgot to approve the minutes at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, well, you did send me a text, and I appreciate that. And as we got into it, I kind of forgot that text. So, Madam Clerk, just a review of your records. Did we forego the approval of the minutes? And if so, then we can get to that item now if there's no objection.
We did.
We did?
Yeah, we
Okay.
did.
Councilmember Cirillo, I appreciate you pointing this out. If there's no objection, we'll go back to this item after the approval of the minutes, and I will make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 17th.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. 3 out of 7 yeas, that motion does pass. Now let's go back to printed order of the agenda, in which we are back on comments for the good of the body. I believe we had someone else on speaker. So feel free to punch your button if you still would like to speak. Maybe there's someone else to tell me meetings. Okay, because I don't have any more speakers. Is that everyone? See no more speakers, no more announcements then. With that, I will make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion has been made and then seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast their vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. We are adjourned. However, we are jumping right into our workshop on fireworks. So the chair recognizes Chief Snow. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. Tammy Snow, Fire Chief. Here today to give you an overview of our fireworks enforcement from 2021. This year, again, as in the previous past 3 years, we partnered with the police department and we formulated enforcement teams. We did that for the evenings of July 3rd and July 4th per the fireworks ordinance. We had 10 teams this year. We identified 10 hot spots that we were going to concentrate on. And what we did also, in addition, was to, on the nights of July 1st and July 2nd, we sent out fire investigators in teams of 2 and identified some specific hot spots in which we'd had some issues in the prior 3 years. We ended up writing 88 citations this year and compensated numerous fireworks. So from July 1st to July 5th, we had approximately 1,139 complaint calls, 47 injuries reported to the medical facilities, 39 fireworks-related calls. We ended up with 3 structure fires and 1 non-structure fire. The 1 non-structure fire, oftentimes we get questions about that. That was a gazebo with a total loss then of $183,000. This is just a picture depicting some of the compensated fireworks, illegal compensated fireworks. In front of you now is a picture of our complaint areas that we identified. And you can see the 10 teams that we put out. We try to put them on the 2 different nights, and also then on July 1st and July 2nd, we try to concentrate in just those areas, the hotspot, what we identified as the hotspot areas.
Chief, I'm
Yes,
sorry
sir.
to interrupt, but just a quick question regarding the map there.
Uh-huh.
Is that where the calls came from or where the fireworks were reported from shooting?
It was complaint calls, so it'd be like a neighbor calling in on their neighbor
But
cross.
that's where the calls originated from, are these red squares?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
What you see in front of you here now is just from 2016 to 2021. It gives you some data in regards to fireworks injuries, and also gives you complaint calls from July 1 to July 6. If you notice on the 2020 and 2021, the complaint call lines were only operated from July 1st to July 5th. A lot of that depends on when July 4th falls. So that's the difference in whether it's a 5-day or a 4-day event. Also noted here in 2019 was the first time that 911 or emergency communications was able to separate out between all complaint calls that came in from Sedgwick County and those just specific to the city of Wichita. Here we're depicting the amount of losses from directly related to fireworks. Gives you a comparison from 2016 through 2021. Again, I note the fact that in 2018 was the year in which we actually began enforcing fireworks. So in 2016 and 2017, there was no enforcement teams. The only enforcement was done by our fire investigators. Here's a history of the citations that we've issued. Again, noting that in 2016 and 2017, there was no enforcement teams. So starting in 2018 and 2021. We learned a lot of things our very first year in 2018. Also, you note there's several more citations that were written, but we also had 22 teams out, and we did that without any protection It was basically firefighters coupled with one police officer, and it wasn't very safe. So we amended that and went back to drawing boards, and now we have a system that seems to be, it's a safe system and seems to be working. So financial consideration, the firework permit sales, they offset the enforcement teams. And then the citation fines are expected to be approximately, from the 88 citations, about a little over $28,000 if they're all collected. So our recommendation moving forward would be to continue to concentrate our efforts on our public safety announcements. I will say that this is the first year since 2018 in which the injuries are a result of smoke bombs, fireworks, and sparklers, which are all legal, versus what they've been in the past, the mortars. So next year, we'll concentrate our efforts really dedicated towards legal fireworks and the use of them and so forth. So that's what our plans are for 2022. The other thing is we'll continue to evaluate our process and our procedures, seek to do improvements on that enforcement in our education and to the current ordinance. So I'll stand for questions.
All right, questions for staff? We'll go Councilmember Claycomb, then Councilmember Frye.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. I have a question. I'm looking at the calls, per day and calls for the July 1st through 6th. So I've had people in the community say that they call and then there's no response. And we can't possibly get to all of those. But what's the process when someone calls in and makes a complaint? What's our process for follow-up or taking action on that?
Those calls, it inundates the 911 system, okay? And that's the reason why they have two different telephone numbers, okay? Our first priority are going to be 911 calls. And so what ends up happening is they provide us on our computer screen, they provide us with the list of those calls, the complaint calls. And so what happens is when a unit frees themselves up, they will drive into the complaint call area or where the complaint is. A couple different things. It goes back to the same philosophy that I've told you before. If I'm showing up in a big red fire truck, usually people understand that it's probably not going to work out real well for them and they disappear or things disappear. And then also it's timing. So if I'm tied up on a medical call for 10 or 15 minutes, by the time I drive over 4 or 5 minutes to wherever the complaint is, a lot of times we're not very timely in that matter either. The enforcement teams do the same thing. Of course, we give them, this year we put some parameters on them because last year what was happening was everybody became converting, everybody would respond to exactly the same complaint. So last year we only had 7 teams out, so all 7 would be converging in on the same area. This year we gave them identified areas. You stay in this hot spot. So there may be complaint calls that we didn't get to, either very untimely. Those are when I say that we need to continue to look at our process and our procedures and try to refine them. That's what we're looking to do for 2022.
So the people that call, do they get notified? I mean, again, I know we're overwhelmed on those, right at the 4th. But if they call and make a complaint, do they get some sort of, callback or something?
Usually not, but we can look in to see if we can improve that process. We can work with dispatch and we can see what we can do to improve that because that would provide better customer service.
Yeah, and I know that, again, it's a lot. Like I can see on the 4th, 527 calls. That's a lot, and they probably didn't come in all throughout the day. They probably came in pretty much in a 4, 5, 6 hour time frame.
Right.
And so it may even be, and you guys are the experts at these, so I know, but it may even be not immediate, if we can't respond immediately, just, over the next few days, letting folks know that we checked that out or, whatever it was.
Right,
so.
yeah. I appreciate that. That is a very good customer service suggestion, so we'll look into that.
Councilmember Frye.
Thank you. Chief Snow, on slide 9, you talked about firework permit sales going to offset the enforcement cost of 37. What's the number are we expecting from that?
Our fireworks actual cost, the enforcement team was $37,400.
Right, but what's the revenue from the permit sales? How much are we offsetting with that? Do we know?
We gathered $37,500 from the permit.
So it's revenue?
Yeah, it's
Neutral.
It is basically neutral, $100.
It's washed out, okay.
It's washed,
All
yeah.
right, good, thank you.
Councilmember Cirillo?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Snow, thanks for this work. You mentioned that in 2018, I believe you had 22 teams out. Why, was it a funding thing that we cut back so far, or what happened? Why did we cut
No,
back?
that was our very first year, and we thought, well, what we would do is we would put one team out in each one of the fire stations' primary response areas. We have 22 fire stations, so we put 22 teams out. Then we knew we needed to pair them up with law enforcement officers, so we got 22 officers, and we put them out in different vehicles. We put them out, we thought, well, you know, if you put them out in a police vehicle, everybody's going to run. If you put them out in some type of fire identified vehicle, everybody's going to run. So we got trip cars, basically, put them out in trip cars. What we found, Councilmember Cirillo, was we have videos. It became very hostile environment. And then so we went to PD. Firefighters aren't trained in de-escalation. They're not trained in self-defense. In fact, I was one of the members out, and my own personal story is I walk up, and as I'm walking up, the police officer saying to me, hey, do you know how to shoot a gun? I said, no. He goes, do you carry a gun? I said, if I don't know how to shoot one, I don't carry one. And so then he asked me, he says, okay, are you trained in self-defense? I said, no. He goes, well, I got a gun on my ankle. He goes, so if this goes bad, you grab my gun on my ankle. I said, you know what? If this goes bad, it's every man for himself, and I'm running. And so then we have a video of one of our fire officers being hit in the head numerous times by one of the members of a crowd. So it wasn't a very safe environment. Went to PD since they're the experts in that area. They said, hey, we need a minimum of 2 police officers. And so that's how we operate now, with 2 police officers and a firefighter.
Okay, so you mentioned safety as well. Was that the difference in you determining that the crews that go out now are safer, was because they have 2 police officers with them now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Further questions? Further questions from council to staff? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the suggestion.
Mr. Manager.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
That's it?
That's it.
All right, so with that, if there is no further discussion, then if there is no objection, then we'll adjourn. See no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.